It's Thursday, 4 p.m. Central. I'm Fred McMurray, which means this must be...
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Pillars of Franchising.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and happy Friday Eve, my almost favorite day of the week. Tomorrow would be the favorite, but this is second favorite because we've got the show going on. Today is January 26th. We're coming to you today with a couple of fantastic guests, but before we get to that, let's talk about some other fun stuff going on out there in the franchising world.
Let's do. We've got a couple of things to talk about. Lots going on, traveling as usual, it seems, and more to come. But first, I thought we would talk about the trends coming up in 2023. And Entrepreneur put out a list of the top 15 franchises for under $25,000. Did you see that?
I did. And as a matter of fact, as somebody that helps people select their franchise investment, their franchise future, so to speak, I am always interested to see which ones they list. And it's interesting because many of these, in our travels and in the networking and things we do within the franchise industry, we typically go out and we meet with the franchisors. And the intent behind that and all the crazy travel that we've been doing is so that we can understand not only who, if they're still around, is the founder of the company, what are the values, what kind of candidate they're looking for, really kind of start to build relationships with the brands so that when I have a candidate who says, well, I think I want to be in this case, we'll use home improvement or home services. I'm like, oh, I know a great brand for you. And within this brand, you're within this umbrella, so to speak, there are several different brands we can talk about. And so that's why we do a lot of traveling. And this past week was absolutely no exception to that. And we'll talk a little bit more about one of those umbrella brands, as we call them. But for now, when I looked through this list with you, I was surprised. There are some franchises in here that I had not heard of before, and then some other ones that are really big players. So I thought instead of going through the list of all 15, I'd talk about a couple that we've either had on the show, give them a little shout out. So if people are interested in that brand, there's a previous episode you can go back and check out. Go to pillarsoffranchising.com, pull up the brand, and you can find the interview and hear for yourself what the interview was like, the people who run the company, and see if there's maybe like a personality fit or something that you hear, lifestyle fit that you're looking for. So the first one I want to talk about, and again, these were investments of under $25,000. And I will tell you that with many of these, while they're listed as that you can start for under $25,000, there are things to consider. That does not mean that every single territory you buy with them is going to be under $25,000, right? So the first one I'm going to talk about with you is JanPro. JanPro Cleaning and Disinfecting, commercial cleaning company. Their initial franchise fees, according to the FDD, is $2,520 up to $44,000. And the reason you see some of these discrepancies, again, depends on the market that you're buying, how big of a territory you're buying. And so, again, because Entrepreneur tells you they're under $25,000, you really have to make sure you understand what that means in this particular program. It also does not mean total investment. These are initial franchise fees. So don't forget that you've got to have some extra capital laying around to make sure that you can do your build outs, make sure that you can get any licensing that you may need. Obviously, keep your business going for, at least when you think you're going to break even, kind of plan for beyond when you estimate breaking even so that you've got a cushion, of course. So JanPro was one of the top ones that we looked at. The other one that was on there that we had talked to before here, which is a great one to take a look at, is Brightway Insurance. We did have them on. Another one I found that was interesting, it's not quite the same as JanPro, but it is very similar, and that is Building Stars Janitorial. a fun one for people who might enjoy getting out there and doing some business travel, and you can pick it up for quite cheap, is Dream Vacations. So I thought, Elizabeth, I mean, maybe we should be doing that because we're going everywhere anyway, right?
Might save us some money.
Yeah, I mean, we could just write it all off as business travel, right? We're just
Exactly.
these resorts. So, I mean, kind of fun to think about that. They already have 1,600 units in the U.S. Right along the lines with that is cruise planners. That's always interesting. So they've got initial franchise fees, and here's where I'm talking about the differences, right? Their initial franchise fee goes from $695 up to $10,995. And then the initial investment on top of that is listed, call it $2,300 to $23,000. So again, if you want to look at the entrepreneur.com, it's called the Franchise Top 15 Under 25. And the last one that I thought was kind of just a fun one to talk about, well, actually, let's talk about two. One of is Leadership Management International. I think that is a lot. The reason I want to bring that one up, we talk a lot on the show with Karen Kimsey-Sward of Dale Carnegie, and how the workforce has changed so much today. And I think that if you are somebody who understands the need for being able to lead in new and different ways, going into a leadership type of franchise might just be something for you. It's leadership, it's organizational training and development. So that's a very interesting one. I don't know all the details on that, but I'm sure you can find some more if you dig in. And last but not least, since COVID, everybody has these ginormous signs that say, "Happy birthday, Chad," right? And so Card My Yard is one that was listed on there. And I've not studied that model yet, but I found it to be interesting that they've got one out there that seems to be doing quite well. And their initial, let's see if I can find, okay, their initial franchise fee is $8,000, and their initial investment ranges between $9,800 and $18,000. So again, maybe this is something that's a side gig for you. Maybe somebody just wants to dabble and check out franchising. These are low investments. Hopefully they have good returns on them. But take a look again at entrepreneur.com, franchising top 15 under 25,000.
Yep, great information. And what is it that causes them to have such a low entry point? What are some things that are common?
That's a great question. Okay. Typically you find low investments can be a multitude of things, but the number one driver is whether you're a service-based business or you're like a storefront. Say you have two totally different dynamics. If I'm a restaurant, or if I'm a retail establishment versus I'm a consulting firm, or I'm Card My Yard, right? So Card My Yard might have some storage space that they need, but they don't need storefront. So they're not paying for prime real estate. Card My Yard might need 2 or 3 employees, and take a Burger King who might need 45, 50, 60 plus, or Crumble Cookie who needs 60 right out of the gate, right? So those are things to consider. So when you're looking at, I really want to open my own business and I have $100,000 to spend. Okay, that plus your net worth, maybe that restaurant that you're dreaming of is a great idea, but maybe that's a little out of your price range, unless, of course, you use some of the financing things that we've talked about before on the show, right? So I always tell people, people are like, well, why do you want to know how much I have? Like, that seems so impersonable. Like, what do you just want to sell me? No, it helps us decide what's a realistic type of brand for you to be looking for. And just to your point, the biggest difference is, are you a service-based business with fewer employees, or are you a brick and mortar with a significant piece of real estate and more employees to take care of?
Well, and that, Kristin, kind of leads us into the second half of our conversation, too. One of the things when we were down in West Palm, we went to the franchise selling boot camp, which was a lot of franchisors and friend of people who are in the business of selling franchises. And it was a boot camp to give you more tools and more ideas, some creativity, some updates on techniques and things. And the roundtable that you hosted was about how big a sandbox you want to play in. So coming from the conversation that you just ended, in that vein, what difference does it make about how big of a sandbox do you play in? Meaning, is it a franchise system that's on its own? Is it an emerging franchise? Is something more established? Is it under the umbrella of a bigger brand. What is the impact of that when you're making a decision?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do, I mean, obviously, when you're working with a consultant or a broker, it's really important to understand what it is that you're looking for, not only from a lifestyle perspective, but what is your background and what are you comfortable doing? Are you a manager of change? Do you like change, or you kind of just want to buy a system and you kind of want to stay there? Or are you somebody who like has 1,000 ideas, you want to buy this system, you really like what they have, and you just can't wait to share your perspective and how you can make the brand better, right? So to me, when I talk to people, there are 3 different kind of categories. So the person who is a good agent of change, somebody who knows what they want, they've researched their brand, they've done the due diligence. That's not a bad place for somebody who is in a brand who's set to be acquired. Okay. And we're going to talk with authority brands here in a few minutes, and they just have recently they've got a bunch of acquisitions that they've made, just like Neighborly has made a bunch as well. And so people who are in a brand that is positioned to grow and potentially be acquired, which really should be everybody, you can't be closed-minded. You have to know that these things are going to change, right? If you're looking for, if I've got somebody who's like, I really love the franchising model, like I always wanted to do this for myself, but I never knew how to get started, and I have all these great ideas. When they meet with an emerging brand, it's always interesting because they have this energy, and often they have some really great ideas. And so if I can match them with an emerging brand who is looking for some founding franchisees, that's a great fit, because often they can work together. A new franchisee in an emerging brand does a great job typically at sharing ideas and thoughts and really helping the franchisor continue its road to growth. I will give you an example of somebody who really, most people, when you buy into a brand, that my brand that I bought into was pretty stable. And then we were acquired, and then we were acquired again and again. And so while we were all one brand, kind of standalone with one other sister company, it was one mentality. It was one set of relationships you had, right? It was kind of one guiding, I'll say, philosophy that you followed. But then as you're with these brands and you continue to be acquired, you have to be able to pivot. And we talked about the word pivot being so overplayed in COVID, but it's really a critical skill set as a franchisee to have, because really, if you were a founder and you wanted to make your company a franchise, your goal should be to be acquired, right? I want to get positioned by an umbrella company that's going to help me grow maybe 100 times, 1,000 times beyond what I'm capable of. So hopefully that makes sense. We talked about the pros and cons of both, what kinds of personalities play well in which sandbox, and really the avatar of the perfect candidate for which size of franchise they're looking to buy and in what status.
Yeah. And the bottom line really is life has changed. And so even if you get in at one culture or a situation, it may not always stay that way. So keeping an open mind is always good advice, right?
Yeah, and I think that's true too. We'll certainly be joined here shortly, and we'll talk further about that if you speak about it from the franchisee perspective or from the franchisor perspective, what kind of challenges come with that.
Yeah.
And with that,
great information. I think we're ready to introduce our guests, right?
Absolutely.
And here they are. So from Authority Brands, we've got Michael Hutchins and Chad Harrison. We're excited to have them here, have lots of things to talk about. But before we get started, why don't each of you give us a little bit of background on yourselves individually, and then you can pepper in some Authority Brands history as well. Michael, you want to start?
Sure. Well, thank you for having us today. We've been looking forward to it. I have been in franchising for over 20 years and kind of fell into it by accident. I was, playing golf across the country. I'd moved from New Jersey to Arizona and ran into someone that I had known from a past life, and they were now heading up a franchise development team. And I was happy doing what I was doing. And, but a year later, he's a good salesperson. I decided, let me give franchising, a try. It sounded interesting. And I really just fell in love with it. I love working with entrepreneurs and just the satisfaction that comes from, helping someone establish a business for themselves, and kind of been able to, point to things, where you've kind of had a small part in helping them achieve their goals. And that was in the hospitality industry. And I spent well over a decade, in the hospitality industry with, some of, some large franchisors. But I enjoy home services, and I've been with Authority Brands now just under 2 years, and I manage the growth of their 1 Hour brand across the country. And, there's a lot of common denominators in franchising. You've got different industries, different price points, owner operator, semi-absentee models, things like that. But really the process, for that someone goes through to really understand that opportunity and ensure that they have all the information to make an educated decision is really the same. And I still enjoy that. I mean, I've done well over 1,000 franchise agreements, and getting with someone new who's kind of looking at it for the first time, I still just get just as excited as I did, way back over 20 years ago. So it ended up being the vehicle for me. I enjoy it, for a variety of different reasons. And Authority Brands, owns 1 Hour, but we also own 12 other home services brands. And so there's the power of Authority Brands. And so the franchisees that I bring in under the 1 Hour, they can grow by adding additional territories, but they can also add on our sister brands. I have owners that have added on an America's Swimming Pool, a Ben Franklin Plumbing, Mr. Sparky Electric, all of them. So it's another growth strategy because you're really servicing additional needs from that same homeowner.
Excellent.
So.
Chad, how about you? Because we're going to get deeper into that, Michael. Don't you worry. I like talking about the bridge of the brands.
Okay.
But let's see who Chad is.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having us. My career franchise is much shorter. I support Mike, but I've been with Authority Brands for 2 years now. And previous to that was restaurant management, so hospitality, but always on a sales side. But getting in with Michael and with Authority Brands and our 1 Hour heating and air, it is amazing how big this industry is, franchising, and impressive, and what we can do for clients that come in who are interested in business ownership, and it's life-changing, and it's exciting. So
awesome. Well, that's great. We're so glad to have you both on the show today. And I will say, Michael, you kind of beat me right to the punch because, as we talked about the size of the sandbox and such, you guys are both here to talk about one specific brand that we're going to talk about kind of all your brands lightly. Do you want to introduce the brand that you'd like to talk about today?
Sure. Well, 1 Hour heating and air is obviously very dear to my heart. So I will, and that's where my area of expertise lies as far as the Authority Brands umbrella. But we just got back from a kickoff meeting. I was up in Maryland. Chad was there all last week, celebrating victories. 1 Hour, we were, and we have a very talented, group of people there. 1 Hour, was the #1 brand last year with Authority Brands.
Nice.
And, we did quite a few agreements. And I will tell you that the majority of the new owners that we work with are entrepreneurs. So they're not from within this industry. And they like 1 Hour because it's an essential service. They like that it has a high return on investment, the relatively short ramp up period. And as far as, FDDs, we have a very strong item 19 with 1 Hour. Last year, our #1 owner did over $22 million in revenue, and system wide. Now we're the market leader, the #1 residential HVAC company in the country, franchising for 20 years. So close to 400 locations. Average revenue per owner last year was $3.8 million.
Wow. Now I know you can't tell me exactly, probably, But ballpark, are they seeing margins between 20 and 40, 10 and 15?
I can't
What's in your
disclose that
FDD?
because of our FDD, but they are very healthy.
Okay, good.
They are very
Good.
healthy. And when they make validation calls, which I absolutely want them to do, they will be able to see there's a common denominator when they talk to owners on what the margins are. But I will tell you that I had multiple owners last year who bought their first territory in the spring, and by Christmas, they were adding their second territory. So the model works, and they're able to reinvest and grow their businesses quite quickly.
Well, so that's a really good question. So let's talk about, I want to talk about those territories, how you define a territory, and then where are some of the markets that you're looking to go into?
Sure. So let me just start by touching on the initial investment, because the territory fee is part of that. So as I mentioned, we support both owner operator as well as semi-absentee. So an appropriate budget for an owner operator, single territory, 2 vehicles, 2 technicians, leasing about 1,000 square feet of warehouse space, as well as, ample funds for marketing and $50,000 in working capital for during their ramp up, is $150,000.
Not bad.
And if they want to be semi-absentee, everything is the same, but they need to allocate an additional $85,000 for a solid lead tech. So that initial investment would be $235,000.
Okay. And let's talk about that. So there are probably people out there listening today who says, hey, that's not bad. I could swing that. On top of those initial fees, what do you estimate they're going to need till they get break even? I mean, obviously, it sounds like they're having great success very quickly. Is there kind of a set amount that you say, hey, you really need to have this amount?
Well, those budgets are what I call appropriate budgets. Within the FDD, we have a range of 91 to 201. Can you do it for 91? Yes. But to accelerate growth and, I see historically, how the owners get traction quicker. That's why I use those budgets 150 and 235. That's got a year of local marketing built into it. For entrepreneurs who are not going to come to me with an HVAC license in their back pocket, that also secures them a license for their state. So everything that they would need is taken into account within that budget. And as you mentioned, this is really a demand business. Someone flips a switch, something isn't working properly. They reach out to someone, and, we have a national call center, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So anytime someone reaches out to a 1 hour location, they're either going to have that appointment scheduled or a technician will be dispatched. So it's almost immediate. We flip the switch and the trucks are out in their respective territory after 120 days, and they're bringing in revenue, immediately.
And you market it, and we talked about the semi-absentee. Okay. So for people who maybe they don't want to live in the same area that they buy, or whatever the case may be, maybe they've got a couple of different things going on. What does that look like? What does that schedule look like for somebody who's semi-absentee?
Okay. So semi-absentee, that is kind of broad. So I do have owners that, like I have someone in Texas, they have about 10 territories doing well. They went and bought 10 in Phoenix and just duplicated the processes. But, for semi-absentee and really, entrepreneurs coming in, they're working, I'll just share an example. I have someone, Greg, I'll just use his first name, in the IT industry, loves it. Started 1 hour, April 2021, also simultaneously launched a fitness franchise. He was never going to leave the IT industry. He has no desire to get in a truck, but he wanted to be the CEO of a successful, HVAC company.
Right.
So there's a time commitment as well as a financial investment. You can't just sign the lease and disappear.
Yeah.
So Greg, he spent about 5-6 hours doing online tutorials. Then he went out to Phoenix for 5 days, spent about 3 days on Zoom training, learning the software systems, etc. He's got it for that 120 days of onboarding. There's a weekly call, 1 hour, 1 day a week. Maybe towards the end, it's 2 calls a week when they get closer to opening. And then once the office is open, for maybe the first 9 months, you can go as often as you want. Obviously, you're the owner, but at least, 1 day a month for that first 9 months to get a solid foundation, to learn how to really understand the daily management reports, to have worked with marketing and some of the coaches to understand the KPIs for the brand. So Greg is putting in about 10 hours a week managing his manager now. He's got a great foundation. Started off single territory, 2 trucks. Within his first year, he was up to 2 territories and 5 trucks. And maybe it was after Thanksgiving, he reached out and he wants to add another 2 territories and just continue to grow that business. So that would be, but I have an owner that lives in Canada that has 5 territories down in Miami, a manager down there that, he's managing remotely. So we have specific training to, set semi-absentee owners up in order to be successful.
That's awesome. So Chad, can you tell me, what do you consider to be the ideal candidate for you? Is it somebody that is from the trades, or do you prefer somebody who isn't, and you guys can kind of bring them on board and train them in your own way? And I'm sorry.
Go ahead. We definitely have a mix. I mean, we have some individuals that come through with HVAC experience, but I mean, as Michael and I have always discussed, I mean, it's for the franchise model, it's just a matter of following the system. As he mentioned before, IT specialists, lawyers, entrepreneurs, investors, in some cases, multiple investors. So it is broad, and we have the support and the means to get them up and running, no matter the background. Anything to add, Michael?
Yeah, I want to add, I mean, those were great points, but I will tell you that having a background in the industry is not a key attribute, to success. In fact, when I do a conversion, one of my first goals is to get that owner out of the truck and then working on the business. So entrepreneurs, they have no desire to get in the truck to start with. So I'm already ahead of the game. And as Chad mentioned, key attributes include the ability and desire to follow the system. It's already been replicated hundreds of times successfully across the country. And understanding that this business is relatively simple, the model. It's about building a team, creating a culture, having your technicians all aligned towards the same common goal. In order to increase revenue, you need to add technicians, add vehicles.
Right.
And, and we help them grow smartly doing that. And our technicians actually transition to what we call profit sharing, which is our term for commission-based comp plan. So in essence, what 1 hour owners are doing is they're providing their team with the ability to run their own business within a vehicle that they provide for them.
Awesome. And the second part of the question that I had previously asked was, what territories are you looking to go in to now? Where are your target markets?
Well, we have a great team, and Chad is part of that. Right now, we are focused on, I'm focused, California. I hadn't gone west in a while. So now I'm out there, and we have 3 new locations out there. So California, we have a great, well-established location in Sacramento, but we are adding Fresno, Torrance, and San Diego. So California, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Austin, Texas is another growth corridor, for someone that wanted to have multiple territories. Chicago is another area that I'm focusing heavily on there. We are looking into Utah is another area. Phoenix, Arizona. I have 10 territories there sold, 1 owner, the same gentleman from Texas, but the whole western side of Phoenix, all the way out Goodyear, Peoria is available.
Those people can't go without their air conditioning.
No, they cannot. I lived out there for 10 years. And my first summer, I thought, I was living in a sauna, a free sauna,
Just like Chicago. I mean, it's 20 degrees outside. Yes. I can't not have heat.
And I will, I have top 5 owners all across the country, whether it's Denver, Cincinnati, Pennsylvania, where I am in Florida, hot or cold climates, they're both performing equally as well. The marketing is a little different, maybe, they may do more furnaces, etc. But the model and the business is just as successful, anywhere within the country.
Awesome.
So let's talk about that, because we were talking about marketing, and in terms of marketing to employees and hiring. There's been a lot of discussion about shortages, and especially in the skills and the trades. What are you doing? What are you seeing throughout 1 Hour Heating and Air itself? And what are you doing to help mitigate any trouble that some of your franchisees may have in hiring?
That's a great question, and it comes up all the time. People that are not from within this industry, they don't speak the language, etc. We are very good at recruiting. One of the advantages that our owners have when they're recruiting technicians from within the industry, we'll start there. We have our own internal success academy. It's award-winning. It mirrors that of any accredited trade school. So technicians are classified level 1, level 2, depending on where they are in their careers. Wherever they are, they can further their careers, go from level 1 to level 2, increase their own personal earning power. And they can do that all through their owner 1 Hour Success Academy. So they don't have to go back to an outside trade school any longer and spend money on tuition. Our owners also can recruit apprentice level employees, hire for attitude, because they have Success Academy. You can take people with zero industry experience, and within 30 days, they can be a new maintenance tech for your company. 3-4 months, a new service repair technician. And we're also very proactive in helping our owners. Last year, we spent $700,000 with the various military branches, placing veterans with transferable skills all across the country, providing them with a second civilian career, as well as adding to the strength and depth of our owners' teams. This partnership with the Military and Career Plug has really paid off. Last month, December last year, I had 5,500 applications from veterans trained up in the military and HVAC looking for a job. So all those locations that we opened last year that got us up on the podium when we were up in corporate, I did not have one location that did not have their team recruited and trained up and ready to go at the end of their 120 days.
Wow, that's an amazing feat. I mean, that you deserve accolades for that, especially when you're talking about skills and trades. I mean, that's a tough thing to do.
It was a great initiative. And they put a lot of thought into it, and they executed it extremely well. And it's really paid off for veterans that have found a home with 1 Hour, and our owners who have been able to, add top talent to their team. So it really worked out terrific.
So let's talk a little bit about, I queued this up talking about what it's like for a franchisee to be a part of an umbrella brand. But what about from a franchisor perspective, when you go out and you acquire brands, what kinds of things do you all need to do to get that brand ready, or get ready for that brand, so to speak, and to really kind of ease the transition for the management team or ownership team that's in place to bring them under your new company?
Sure. Well, we have broken down our, authority brands into kind of 4 smaller categories or silos. So 1 Hour falls under the essential services. So we've got, HVAC, plumbing, electric, and restoration. Then we also have emerging brands. So they have, a separate silo, indoor and outdoor. So we've kind of broken them down into, smaller subcategories. So we, we acquired Monster Tree Service, well established. Junk Luggers, our latest, has quite a few, dots on the map. Woofies, which you had mentioned, they had one corporate location, but a great concept. And that's where Authority Brands really excels, is that you can it takes money to franchise. It's expensive, to do it properly, to have a proper FDD, to have all of the support systems in place, software systems, all the things that you need to have that someone, is paying for when they join a system.
Yeah.
But, our owners, all of them, we benefit from being part of Authority Brands 1 Hour owners because of the collective purchasing power.
Right.
We have preferred pricing in place, but it's established that pricing because we're part of $1.5 billion of annual spend. So vehicles, whether it's a pool company or Woofies, they all need vehicles. And so, collectively, all of our owners, really it drives greater profitability for all of our owners being part of authority brands.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. And certainly when I'm talking about matching brands with people, until we get into the nitty gritty and you're doing a break-even analysis or you're talking about some of the financials, we tend to skip past that benefit of being a part of the bigger sandbox, right?
Absolutely. The emerging brands, they come in and, whether we redo their franchise disclosure document, but it can be done the proper way and it can be done quicker because, they have a lot of experience with that. They know, what type of training should be provided. Marketing. Sure. We do the marketing for a lot of our brands. So, you have, you get plugged into a system where the marketing machine is already there, contacting homeowners. So now you're just adding another brand, but really, you're reaching out to the same consumer. So that just gets done that much more quickly and more cost effective. So again, just another benefit.
So in terms of people who are averse to change, how, when you acquire a new brand, do you feed them into your culture or adopt some of their culture or make that transition as painless as you possibly can while still doing the things that need to get done? And sure. and even bigger than that, how would you describe the culture at Authority Brands?
Well, we are very franchisee friendly. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is our culture. I mean, our core values are, loyalty, respect, and we really, it's our employees, it's our franchisees, really adhere to those, core values. And when you look at, cultures are important, and every brand has its own culture. The franchisees, that's part of the reason some people are attracted to a certain brands because, they fit in with that culture. Some brands you have to be a little more salesy. Some you do not. Some you cannot be semi-absentee. You have to be owner operator, whatever it may be. There is a culture for a brand, but when we acquire a new brand, we look at how it's going to fit into, the other brands that we already have. Like, we want it to complement one another. So, there's, when we were looking at restoration companies to acquire, there were multiple to select from. And, we wanted to have a strong platform, obviously. But then looking at, the company itself and their culture, how are they going to align with our existing culture, bringing them in? So, we look for a good fit. Nothing is ever perfect and there's a learning curve, but we have, a pretty well established, especially with the emerging brands, someone's coming in and now, they've got to kind of let go and, it's like if you're going to get a babysitter for the first time and now you've got, okay, someone else, I'm going to, give you responsibility for my child. But, they realize that, they no longer own their business. Like, now they're in there and they're really in an operations role. And we have a transition. There's a training, to go through to help people make that. Some people adjust a little easier than others, but ultimately they do adjust. But we have kind of a transition plan because we know people are kind of emotionally tied to their business even after the transaction, closes.
Oh, yeah.
To assist with that. And also, reaching out to the existing franchisees and, introducing, whatever it may be, the marketing team or the support staff. And we really welcome them in and it's gone smoothly. I mean, we acquired, maybe 5 brands last year.
Yeah.
And we've all added, new dots to every one of them, and they're actually growing quite aggressively with quality franchisees and great markets.
Well, let's talk about that. I'm so glad that you guys came on, but I know that some of your partners may be like, hey, you didn't even give us a shout out, right? So do one of you or both of you want to kind of to collectively talk about the different brands that you have out there?
Sure. Well, Chad, don't let me forget any, but we've got a talented team and every one of our brands has, a
I've got the
counterpart to
list.
myself.
You've got the list. Yeah.
So we've got, let's see here. So we've got, the Cleaning Authority. We have Mosquito Squad. We have America Swimming Pool, Dry Medic Restoration, Mr. Sparky, Ben Franklin, Home Watch Caregivers, Duty Calls, Woofies, Monster Tree, Junk Luggers. Have I
Color
forgotten
World
anyone?
Painting.
There
Color
you
World
go.
Painting. Thank you, Chad.
I think
Came
you
to
did
my
your-
rescue.
yeah.
I have checked them all off my
Yes,
list.
and then
Yeah.
obviously we have 1 hour. Yes, Tom would have, if I would have forgotten his baby, he would have been upset. Yes, Color World Painting, a great concept. I'll tell you, they it's really well. I don't want to steal their thunder. They'll probably be invited on, one day. But another
This is
terrific
an open
concept.
invitation. I challenge you now to see who could do a better job than you two have done on presenting 1 hour. Who
We
wants
set
to
the bar
better?
high, so we like to have them, to come over here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because I'm from an essential services category as well, and I happen to love essential services. I think it's that you just can't go wrong unless you have bad service and bad employees, right? And so I always look at, as an owner, the employees are my direct customer, and then my customers are also my customers, but through my employees, right? And so I think that's really important. And it sounds like you guys are doing all the right things. I look at 1 hour heating and air and I'm like, semi-absentee. Well, that sounds kind of interesting. So now I got to dig into your FDD and see what I think about it, because it's actually very, very, it's not a sexy brand, right? Cleaning's not sexy.
No, really.
Essential.
None of the essential services are really, I had someone that was looking at Crumble Cookie and they decided that 1 hour was going to be their vehicle. When they understood the business model, I will tell you, last year, and Chad kind of touched on this, and I had a NASCAR pilot come on, someone in med school. Chad mentioned attorneys, engineers, IT, women love 1 hour.
Yeah.
I'm actually a member of Women in HVACR, and I'll be speaking in Atlanta next month. But we had Maisha is in Detroit. Swati is going to open up and take over the entire Cape Cod, the peninsula there.
Nice.
She had her own business before 1 hour as an Amazon distributor. And she was, looking at other concepts, and then came across through a franchise broker, to me. And just, I was like, what do you do with your team now? And she's like, well, we have bowling nights. I said, you get it. You understand how to create a culture and build a team. It's the same thing, with 1 hour. And then we went on some Zoom meetings with women in HVACR, and, she saw women there with, business suits and Louis Vuitton purses. And she realized, okay, I'm not in a truck. I'm not going to be, but there's misconceptions, but it really, again, like you were saying, essential services, it's been crazy times, but, they really got through the pandemic where other industries did not fare as well. The essential services increased. I mean, we were up 30% year over year the last few years. Nice. A lot of the reasons is, people are home more. They were taking care of things that they were putting off, all those types of things. But it's a necessity. People are not going to go, most people anyway, don't want to go without heat for themselves, their family in the winter or something like that. And,
certainly not if you live in an extreme temperature. That's for darn sure.
No, you do not. That's right.
That would not work for me. So, well, I really appreciate both of you guys coming on, and I do look forward to seeing some of the other brands come on. Wolfie's is one that I told you that I've been watching her.
Woofie's, Jamie would love to come on here and talk about Woofie. She does a great job. She loves animals. She loves her clients. And
Jamie, you hear that, right? Like they're.
I will actually send a message to her as soon as we're finished that she should be on the next Pillars of Franchising. Get herself on here.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many cool models out there, and you guys are so lucky to be with an umbrella brand that is really starting to pull more and more companies in and provide more and more opportunity for people out there who really want to get out of the rat race and own their own piece of the American dream and, set their own path. So I thank both of you for coming on. Please tell us, where do we find you? Where do our listeners find you if they'd like to speak with you?
Sure. Chad, do you want to give your contact information?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know as far as the website, onehourheatingandair.com, and a franchise, you can certainly access that. It'll come right to me, the messaging. And then, of course, always my contact number, 410-910-9387.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Chad's really our primary point of contact. So he will, if someone was interested, he will let you know if the territory is available and give you some additional insight, about the brand, and then set up a call for myself to speak with that person. So please feel free to reach out to Chad. We would love to talk to you about 1 hour, educate you on franchising in general.
Yeah.
1 hour may not be the right fit for you. But we can determine that together, and we would love to help you get you on your way to owning your own business.
Well, that's awesome. Again, you guys have been great. We look forward to having you and your other brands on again, and hopefully we'll see you out at the IFA show in February.
Sounds good.
We look forward to helping you, and certainly I am very happy to present your brand to anybody that I'm working with as well. So thank you both again for your time.
Thank you very much
Fantastic.
for having us.
Thank you.
What are the top 3 reasons that you should tune in to Pillars of Franchising? 1, franchise advice from the Million Dollar Mentoring Team. And 2, how about interviews from franchise professionals and influencers? And number 3, how about getting some professional tips on buying, growing, and exiting your franchise? Join us on Pillars of Franchising to learn about the secrets of franchising success. You can find us at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, wherever you listen to your podcast. Well, he's not lying. Your dream certainly does start here. And here at Pillars of Franchising, we would like to extend a huge thank you to our team at Authority Brands, both Chad and Michael, for coming on the show today. And obviously for all of the support team that helps us get to where we're going every show that we do. Thank you to, I'm sorry, my screen popped up there on me. Thank you to Elizabeth and Fred, our technical producers and content producer. And unfortunately, the rest of our team is out doing other things, getting ready for next week's show. So again, please join us next week on Pillars of Franchising, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Thursdays. We are your resource for franchising success. This has been yet another episode of Pillars of Franchising. And don't forget, again, the dream starts here. Have a great week.